President Buhari urges Sports Ministry to build on successes recorded in Commonwealth Games.
Federal government inaugurates new strategy to accelerate COVID-19 vaccination uptake.
Two former governors released from Kuje Custodial Center.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss ways of firming up the Naira.
The free fall of the Naira against the United States dollar and other currencies has been a major source of concern to Nigerians in view of its impact on the nation's economy.
Well, against that background, Good Morning Nigeria focused on the underlying factors responsible for the depreciation of the Naira. And this has been with a view to preferring ways of stabilizing the national currency.
And to this end, Kingsley, a number of economic experts, including the President, Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria, APCON that is, and officials of the CBN Monetary Policy Committee, were assembled to give an insight into the challenge.
Now, the guests decried the dramatic fall of the Naira against the US dollar and other currencies in recent times, especially at the parallel market.
And the guests attributed this worrisome development to a number of factors, including scarcity and high demand of the dollar, and then the Ukraine-Russia war, repatriation, price of crude oil, speculative attacks, and lack of competitiveness, as well as improper management of diaspora remittances.
Now, the experts said that the Naira, just a few decades ago, was highly valued in the United Kingdom. And, of course, that arose from the high level of productivity of the Nigerian economy during that period, which isn't the case right now.
And the guests advocated development of basic domestic necessities, legal framework and regulation, expand supply network, add value to the nation's produce, in addition to making the Apex Bank more innovative.
Now, they also said that policy alone couldn't necessarily salvage the situation without improvement in the productive capacity of the nation's economic subsectors.
And the experts emphasized the need for Nigerians to look inward and come up with local solutions that will not, shut the nation's currency.
Well, as the Naira continues to, some would say, well, fall against other currencies, we've seen some appreciation the other day following the raid of parts of Abuja, particularly in Zone 4, where the parallel market is mostly located. The question still persists whether what we are seeing now in terms of the value of the Naira on the parallel market is what it should be, and what strategies should be adopted to firm up the nation's currency, and what steps are required to improve the nation's productivity, and ultimately what kind of political will is required to salvage this situation. These are some of the issues we intend to look at as we'll discuss how to firm up the nation's currency, the Naira, on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Welcome to the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Yusuf Nadabu Suman, joining Kingsley to welcome you to the program, which comes or rather reaches you live on the network service of the NTA. Aside from farming of the Naira this morning, we shall also discuss COVID-19 Scales 3.0 strategy. And what is this strategy all about? Join us on the program, Kingsley.
And of course, in line with our tradition, we shall serve you our complimentary segments in the course of the program. And those segments will include business and newspaper review. For now, we have Frama Panye, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Frama.
Good morning, Kingsley and Nedabo. Good morning, Nigerians. And here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari congratulates the Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, led by Chief Sunday Dare, sports federation and associations in the country, on the successful conclusion and performance of Team Nigeria at the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, United Kingdom. Team Nigeria posted an impressive outing at the competition, finishing 7th on the medals table with 12 gold, 9 silver and 14 bronze. The President expresses delight at several reports of peaceful atmosphere, unity and camaraderie in the camp throughout the Games, which reflected positively in the psyche of the athletes, contributing to the harvest of medals for Team Nigeria. President Buhari urges the officials to work with all relevant stakeholders to build on the success of the 2022 Commonwealth Games, begin early and earnest preparations to surpass this spectacular achievement in the upcoming competitions. President Buhari looks forward to a rousing reception from Nigerians for members of Team Nigeria Birmingham 2022, even as he assures all stakeholders that youth and sports development will remain a priority for this administration. Former governors Joshua Darie and Jolly Inyame have been released from Kuje Custodial Center. In a statement, Public Relations Officer, FCT Command of the Nigeria Correctional Service, Humphrey Chukwedo, says the release is equal to receipt of the letter of clemency from the Presidential Prerogative of Mercy Committee by the Controller General of Corrections, Haliru Nababa. The statement further indicates that the Controller of Corrections, FCT Command, Ahmed Musa Ahmed, acting on the directive of the Controller General, also released 3 other inmates who granted pardon from the Suleja Custodial Center. Chukwedo explains that the pardon, which was granted earlier this year by President Muhammadu Buhari, was based on recommendations from the Presidential Prerogative of Mercy Committee after interviewing all inmates based on deteriorating health status, age, and good behavior while serving their sentences. In his capacity as Minister of Petroleum Resources and in consonance with the country's drive for foreign direct investment in the energy sector, President Muhammadu Buhari has consented to the acquisition of ExxonMobil shares in the United States of America by Seplat Energy Offshore Limited. ExxonMobil had entered into a landmark sale and purchase agreement with Seplat Energy to acquire the entire share capital of Mobil Producer Nigeria Unlimited from ExxonMobil Corporation, Mobil Development Nigeria Inc. and Mobil Exploration Nigeria Inc., both registered in Delaware, USA. Considering the extensive benefits of the transaction to the Nigerian energy sector and the larger economy, President Buhari was given ministerial consent to the deal. ExxonMobil and Seplat are expected to carry out operatorship of all the oil mining licenses in the related shallow waters asset towards production optimization to support Nigeria's OPEC quota in the short term, as well as ensure accelerated development and monetization of the gas resources in the assets for the Nigerian economy. President Buhari also directed that all environmental and abandonment liabilities be adequately mitigated by ExxonMobil and Seplat. And still, President Muhammadu Buhari has forwarded the name of Mohammed Sabo Lamido to the Senate as Executive Commissioner, Finance and Accounts for the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. In a letter addressed to President of the Senate, Ahmed Ibrahim Lawan, the President said Lamido was being nominated due to the death of Hassan Gambo, who occupied the position until his demise. President Buhari urged the Senate to confirm the nominee in the usual expeditious manner. And the Nigeria and the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, have so far invested $455 million for the financing of 2 key agricultural projects. Consequently, the United Nations Organization, alongside African Development Bank and Islamic Development Bank, are making efforts to finance Nigeria's agro-processing zones project in the country.
Through the partnership with the federal government of Nigeria and IFAD, the Special Agro-Processing Zone Program will be also launched to lead to the following results. 1, participant knowledge of financial management and procurement will be improved. 2nd, action plan for quality and timely project procurement will be developed in line with recommendation of supervision and support mission.
This will enhance the achievement of all the developmental objectives of the project optimally, while keeping in mind value for money and acceptable compliance to the IFAD policy and procedures.
The use of mobile vaccination strategy while strengthening the campaign to mitigate COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy is a key component of the newly inaugurated Skills 3 strategy by the federal government. Secretary to the government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, says the Skills strategy is to achieve COVID-19 vaccination uptake and ensure better healthcare delivery in Nigeria.
Processes that will be put in place will greatly assist in deepening the uptake of vaccines all over the country,
to accelerate the vaccination by identifying the enablers that are unique to each state and developing them and also deploying them as state-specific strategies that will help us to ramp up coverage.
We can now move closer to the people, moving not only from the health facilities, but making sure that we're able to go settlement by settlement, and then in some instances go door by door, so that the vaccines are now brought closer to where people live and work.
As the 2023 general elections draws closer, stakeholders from all facets of life in Borno State have unanimously resolved to use non-kinetic approaches towards ending violent extremism in order to achieve sustainable peace in the Northeast. These views were unanimously agreed by stakeholders, including religious leaders, at a peace-building symposium organized by Khartoum Foundation for Peace, held in Maiduguri, the state capital.
We are educating our people as well as feeding them well so that they are not recruited into the Boko Haram.
To see that peace reign in the Northeast region and also in Nigeria at large.
When our political system is overhauled and there is justice in the nation, I think peace is coming to stay forever.
Nigeria doesn't even need Christian, Muslim. We want somebody who will take us out of our problem.
That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Nedobo and Kingsley after this break.
Good morning, Nigeria. Switching you from the Nigerian Television Authority. Now let's talk business. African countries can trade better with each other with enhanced economic corridors and trade policies that will spur economic growth. Now, details of this comes up next.
Is there enough market intelligence to guide the whole process?
Africa is set to have huge domestic markets for various goods and services and a destination for leading brands. To sustain this trajectory, key players say Africa must work together to develop a unified regulatory framework and policies that will be a win-win for African countries. This is the position of some key players in the trade and export sector in Nairobi, as Nigeria looks to promote its brands in Africa.
If we don't break the policy barriers that will enable export and import, then it will be difficult for our products, a lot of products from creative industries, from agricultural produce to even leave Nigeria.
Kenyans can do business in America and Nigerians can do business in America faster than we can do business together. But now, given the strength of both countries, the population is growing, economy is growing, I think it's high time that we come together and do business within Africa and show the strength of each nation.
Once we have that in hand and we tap into perhaps, the chartered private means of transportation, then I think, trade will actually increase.
They insist that infrastructure is vital to intra-African trade if Africa must harness the full potential of export across the continent for an inclusive and sustainable development on the bloc. With Business News, Comfort Amodu.
Thank you very much, Comfort, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Up next for us is Newspaper Review.
Already Bayo Trevi is right here with us. You're welcome, Bayo.
Thank you, Yusuf. Good to see you again after a long time.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good morning,
Good to see you too.
Now let's start with the Punch newspaper this morning and see what's there for, the readers out there. The Punch newspaper, on the front page of the Punch, you have these stories which are trending there. We have right at the top of the masthead on page 19, it says, NUPRC FG disagree over mobile acquisition by Seplat. And on page 23, WAEC releases, 2022 WASC CE results. It holds 365,000, that is 564 results, that is. And then on page 20, Nigeria, three others, top World Bank debtors list. Coming down, it's a little window just by the side of the mast. We have Shoyinka Knox Pirates Confraternity from more continuable. Details of that on page 14. And the main story, there are two big stories here. One is picturesque and the other one is really written this way. Peace talks suffer, wicked designs on Atiku's men. Details on page 2. And the writer says, you cannot go to Abuja and hold meetings against me. Wicked tells PDP chieftains. And then in the second writer is Rivers governor uncomfortable with my closeness to Atiku, says Senator Maibe. And finally, we will use our votes against those who think Rivers doesn't matter, says Wike. The picturesque story here is about the shared, security agents clash in Kaduna, where you have 6 killed. Details of that on page 9, and you can see as the pictures are there for you to see. At the foot of the page, 3 stories are there, one of which is on page 10. Fake employment, panel recommends whistleblowers sacking. And then on pages 4 and 5, we are protesting motorcyclists, block road, Abuja motorist commuters groan. I don't know where that is, but you can find the details of that as you go to page 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. On page 8, presidential pardon, diarrhea, Nyame, 3 others regain freedom. Yes,
Thank you, Nadabu. Let's take a look also at the front page of the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership newspaper, above the nameplate, you have the following headlines. COVID-19, only 3 states have attained 50% vaccination. That's what you have there on the front page. I'm leaving Commonwealth Games with new record to my name. That's attributed to Amuson. And then below the nameplate, this Leadership is reporting that President Buhari intervenes, approves Seplat Energy's acquisition of ExxonMobil shares. Rivers APC and Wike's loyalists differ on governance overtures to Tinubu. Now, the lead story is a double-decker headline. It says Nigerians resort to cheaper goods as inflation decks purchasing power. That decks there, it's a synonym for effects. You can see the infographics on the front page. And the writer says food inflation rises by almost 100% in 10 years as Nigerians pay more for imported goods due to high exchange rate. Nigerians also lose purchasing power to economic realities. And of course, as I said, the infographics there on the front page are self-explanatory. Food inflation, 100%. Prices of food items have gone up by at least 200%. That's between 2012 and 2022. Other details you find there: high inflation affects you, pay more for imported goods, high cost of credit from banks for Nigerian businesses. Nigerian students home and abroad pay higher tuition fees. And surge in transportation and travel expenses. That's fairly obvious. Airfares now, there's no route, a 1-hour flight that is less than 75,000 naira. If you are going to Lagos, say this afternoon, you probably would need to cough out anything between 100,000 and 120,000 because your flight is pretty close, and the day you are booking is pretty close. Some of the airlines already have days ahead sold out. So surge in transportation and travel expenses, high energy bills, loss of value of the money. Also on the front page, you have the WAEC results. Nadab already read that. Lawyer asks Lagos CJ to probe illegal eviction by court bailiffs. That's an incident that took place in Ajao Estate, that's on the way to the international airport in Lagos. U.S. releases new African policy to counter China and Russia. That's on page 6. Bayo.
Right, let's start with the development that happened yesterday. Some motorcyclists operating along the Uburu-Musa-Yaradua Expressway in the Goza area held traffic for a long time because they were protesting that the FCTA task force had raided the area and seized 13 motorcycles from them because they had warned them to stop operating on the expressway. The motorcyclists had been warned and they were still using the highway. Angered by the seizure, the motorcyclists blocked the highway and caused traffic gridlock over the area. Many commuters had to turn back because they were burning tires and wielding cudgels and clubs on the highway protesting the seizure of their motorcycles. The commercial motorcycles also burned tires, and the FCD police command had to order the Ido Divisional Police Command to disperse them, and they were able to restore order. But the idea of motorcyclists on expressway is very dangerous. All over the world, motorcycles are not allowed to operate on expressway. In some countries, they call them freeway, and they are not allowed to operate there. And worst of all, along the airport road, they drive against traffic, so, which is very, very perilous. And the danger they constitute was properly addressed just 2 days ago by the governor of Lagos State. He says when Lagos enforced the motorcycle ban in 6 of its local government areas, they now found out that the accidents that involve motorcyclists dropped from 500 accidents in a week to 100. And incidences of bag snatching, phone snatching, and theft on the highway has completely been eliminated. So there is a service they provide, but the nuisance value is also very worrying. And
I don't know what really came out of that issue of banning the motorcycles in the FCT. I think we talked about this sometimes last month. And as you said, they drive against the traffic most of the time. And not only that, not only along airport road, all the suburbs, wherever you go, you see them driving against traffic, especially when there is a gridlock on the real road they are supposed to follow. And that does not only affect the motorcycle this time around, especially like yesterday when I was going back home. There was this police, the army checkpoint along this Nyanya road. And then you find a lot of other vehicles just taking the other side, against the traffic really. And you start wondering what's really happening to law enforcement agencies. They are the ones that mount the roadblocks. And of course, these practices are just taking place and nobody cares. Those that follow the queue and are in the queue are the ones that are suffering the bash of the rule. And those that do not follow the queue and then go against the rule are the ones that go scot-free. I wonder what's really happening here.
Well, Nadab, thanks, and Bayo, thanks. I think for me, the first comment to make will be on the misrepresentation of the unlawful protests by those back riders. There were some videos that went viral yesterday evening. I got them late in the night. And there were claims that the back riders were Fulani youth who had barricaded the airport expressway and preventing motorists from plying the expressway. That, of course, was misinformation. It wasn't correct. The back riders could have come from any ethnic group, and the background you gave now as to why they were demonstrating is the correct one. But demonstration should not lead to a barricade on the freeway. It's an offense. So, in my opinion, it wasn't just sufficient that the police detachment from Idu police station dislodged them. A few of them should also have been picked up. And when you set bonfires on asphalt, it leads to the deterioration of the asphalt. When people burn tires, you said burn tires, go and check. After a while, sometimes if the road is not maintained regularly, that's where a pothole starts. It begins with a crack. Absolutely, and then on and on. So it goes there. Now, this is the issue. On Good Morning Nigeria, we've had a conversation around the menace of back riders. The first one is the bikes are unlicensed. We've had the president of the Bike Riders and Owners Association as our guest here. We've also had the VIO chieftains as also our guest on Good Morning Nigeria. The bikes are unlicensed, and then the routes that they are supposed to ply are also now being regulated. In the city of Abuja, you don't find bike riders, and from time to time, the VIO would arrest those bike riders or impound their bikes and take them to their office in Mabushi there. So, if the FCT now that is directed the bike operators not to be on the freeway, that's one of the best directives you could receive in any situation, because as you said, look, when I'm driving on the expressway to the airport, that's the Musa Yaradua expressway to the airport, you have to have your heart in your mouth, because the bikes can come from any angle, from any point, and sometimes just cross the road when it is hazardous. And of course, you know, in an accident situation, both yourself and the victim will be on the spot. And sometimes we have also seen how bike riders have taken the laws into their hands to molest motorists. I mean, I have my concern with the design of the airport expressway in the first instance. That gutter you have between the service lane and the fast lane, that gutter ordinarily should be sealed. It should be sealed, and that's why during the rainy season, when you see vehicles career off the road, they'll end up in the gutter. And then the hard shoulder should have been on the right side and not on the left side. That's for the service lane. But dealing with the menace of Okada riders or bike riders in the FCT, they have made their protest. The law should continue to take its course. The city authorities, that's to say the FCTA, they have taken the initiative of saying, look, don't be on the freeway. And I think that what is important for them to do is to enforce it. If you are found on the freeway where your bike will be impounded, you will also be arrested and then prosecuted. I'm sure if some of them spent a couple of days cooling up their heels at a correctional center, the lessons will be learned.
Enforcement
we can't just be this. Really. We can't just be this lawless.
Yes. Now, the issue of clemency. Now, the correctional center has started implementing the prerogative of mercy that was approved by the National Council of State. Consequently, two former governors, Governor Jole Nyame of Taraba and Joshua Darie of Plateau, former governors, have regained freedom yesterday. They were the two from the Kuje Correctional Center. 3 others regained freedom from Suleja. But in all, 59 persons, including the 2 of them, were granted prerogative of mercy. And their release was sequel to the receipt of the letter of clemency by the Correctional Center from the Presidential Committee on the prerogative of mercy. It may be recalled that the former governor of Plateau State was actually serving a 10-year jail term for laundering 1.1262 billion naira, while his brother Jole Nyame of the Taraba was serving 12-year jail term for stealing 1.6 billion. The cases went through the committee, and the committee on grounds of ill health and also tampered justice with mercy, because those others were said to have been very good behavior while in custody. Now the Commonwealth.
Precisely. You remember we touched on the subject yesterday, and we said today we'll drill into it.
The leadership editorial says that Nigerians were very happy with the athletes and officials because they were able to put smiles on their faces for their performance at the Commonwealth Games. Nigeria won 35 medals, comprising of 12 gold medals, 9 silver, and 14 bronze. And guess what? 12 of the medals that were gold were all won by women. The women also won 7 of our bronze medals and 9 of our silver medals. So in all of the 35 medals that we won, the women won 23.
Yeah, good news this time. We'll continue to encourage them, and I think that's happy. But we shouldn't be on that sexist agenda to say more women want more. There have been times in the past when men want more than women. So the thing is to say, bring them up. I think there are a few lessons to learn from this. The president has already exhorted the Ministry of Sports to build on the successes of Team Nigeria at the Commonwealth Games. fair enough. But there are basic issues to raise.
Yes.
One, how many states hold their state sports festivals regularly? That's part of the avenues for harvesting them young.
Harvesting talents, yes. Them young.
How many states, I repeat this question, host or hold their sports festivals on a regular basis? The Midwest under Ogbemudia held the sports festivals regularly. Ogbemudia built Afuze, which is now a college, I think that they've converted to a university of physical education or human kinetics as it's now called. Now, much more importantly, how many state governments can raise their hand this morning and say that today is the 9th of August. As at 31st of July this year, you have paid all the workers in your state ministry of sports, or sports council, or sports commission. How many? Because sometimes it is the deterioration in the sports council or in the ministry of sports that would affect
yes.
the conduct of simple processes.
The
talent hunt and events and so on and so forth that you hold. What is the state of the stadia that you have in your state, in the capital, in the local government areas?
Yes, if only you have
another lesson.
That's because the president can give his marching orders at the national level. The sports ministry has done what it is required of it to do, but how many of the sub-national entities are on cue to say that, look, we're going to improve on this, we're going to be a production channel for talents to come out and then let them compete at the national level, take them out from there, and then move on. Otherwise, we'll be looking again for Nigerians who are hiding somewhere or who are performing somewhere in the US, and they'll say, okay, quickly bring them to Team Nigeria. Things don't,
another
things don't
area
work
to
that way.
concentrate on is to diversify from the track and field, or concentrate in other areas. If you recall, during the African Games, one young lady, Fatena Afifi from Egypt, single-handedly won about 13 medals just from swimming. We have area of this country where there is a lot of water and people are very good at swimming. We need to start catching them young so that we can, for instance, Australia that came tops of the Commonwealth Games, most of their medal came from activities of swimming. Swimming is a very dominant game. Even when it comes to all Africa Games, Egypt most often than not surpasses Nigeria because they are able to cut away most of the medals in the area of swimming.
Not only that, Bayo, you see, even the population of Nigeria speaks volume about our success, wherever we really want to go in sports and whatever it is. Because the more you have people, the more potentials are there for you, because God is infinite mercy must have done that in order to show you that you have a lot of potentials in abundance, which you can use and tap. So just like Kinsley was asking, states are supposed to really have this courage to come up and then say, we can specialize on this, and we are trying to do this and do that so that we can catch them young.
Yeah.
And then get this, funds really, sport departments and agencies really fully funded, and then encouraged as such, because the encouragement is the word here. Encourage these young ones to really participate. Luckily enough, really, Kinsley, Nigerians are very fond of sports. Of all the things we do, we're very fond of sports, and we really go all-heartedly and all united in order to support it and participate in it. And I think it's a good thing we should do in order to maintain this and have more women, and getting more medals, more men to getting more medals.
Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda were dominating the long-distance race. Not distance part, areas of highline like Jos and Plateau, people from that area were dominating in the long-distance race. But that has fizzled away.
Yeah,
this is the time.
This is the time to return to it. That's what we are saying. Yes. You are right. This is what we are saying. It isn't just some of these long distances. It should be a special project to say that, okay, identify some of the states and then ensure that you send in the specialists. There are strategies for realizing this. Let there be a sea change. It is not on the day of track and field that we now begin to look for medals. You talked about swimming earlier. Good idea. We have a number of littoral states. Nigeria is a littoral state on this, so you have a number of states that have water, bodies of water that you can use for training facilities. Delta have tried to do that the other day. I don't know what has come out of it. I believe they are still going ahead with it. Bayelsa trains is wrestlers and so on and so forth. But long distances, there are other kinds, javelin. Javelin and of course javelin is a track event, sorry, it's a field event, but these are the things that we have to focus on and then say, look, how do we ramp up our medal haul from championship to championship, whether it's World Athletics, whether it's Commonwealth, or ultimately whether it's the Olympics.
Well, thank you so much, Kingsley, for that. Also, thank you, Bayo. At least we should call it quits here because two topics are waiting for us, and we've got to really do justice to them. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be back in a moment. We'll really discussion on the two topics we have for you today. Please stay with us.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're taking our first topic right now, which is on the COVID-19 Scales 3.0 strategy intended to accelerate vaccination uptake.
And the strategy is coming on the heels of the failure of Nigerians to really observe COVID-19 protocols and the refusal to take vaccination as there is a surge in the virus in recent days.
Joining us to shed more light on the issue is the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Osagie Ihanire. Honorable Minister, we're glad to have you with us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Let's start off again. What's the status of Nigeria now with regard to COVID-19? Everywhere you go, people will tell you Corona is gone, Corona is gone, Corona is gone. Is Corona truly gone?
No, there is a false sense of victory. We are not yet sure that the coronavirus is gone. In fact, the news we are getting from scientific community, including the World Health Organization, is that new variants are coming out. The attributes of these variants are not very clear, and some of them could be very, very virulent, and therefore they are advising that we should not be too complacent, and we should continue to maintain the protocols that have been established, and above all, to scale up vaccination and make sure that we get 70 to 80% of the population vaccinated, at least of the target population.
3.0 strategy. Is that being informed by what you just explained?
The 3.0 strategy is an improvement on the 2.0 strategy, and this kind of review that has been done by the Ministry of Health and the National Primary Health Care Development Agency is a periodic review to see how far we're doing with our present strategy, what do we need to change, what do we need to bring in, what do we need to drop, and in order to improve the uptake and to increase the demand. So the 3.0 brings in just new additions, which not everybody will see, but they are additions to the strategy to increase uptake.
What are the elements of this strategy?
Well, more community engagement, and also to create, very important, state-specific plan. That's to say, not a one-size-fits-all plan, but a template that works set for each particular state. There are some states that are performing very well. Jigawa, Nasarawa, Kano, for example, they have done very well. They have vaccinated over 50% of the eligibles. There are others that haven't done too well. We are encouraging them to improve and working with them to create plans, strategy that works specifically for their own states, bearing their own conditions in mind. Remember, some states are very large. Others are small and dense with population. Some are security compromised. Others still have free movement. So you are taking all of this into consideration in creating state-specific plans.
Now, when you talk about states here, we just want to recall how states seem to be relaxed then, even when the COVID-19, pandemic was at its peak, and you've got to go around and then intensify enlightenment in the rest of them so that they can pick up and start vaccinating their people. And here people have relaxed over there, just like Kingsley earlier said. Is it there or is it not there? You say it's still there. That's COVID-19. That means that a lot of people have now forgotten about the fact that it's there. And here we are with the 3.0 strategy, talking about states evolving, or rather coming up with their own individual strategies and peculiarities depending on how they are. I mean, that sounds as if you have a lot of work to do, especially in the sub-national level.
You are correct. We have a lot of work. At the beginning, our concern was whether we have enough vaccines or not. At the moment, we have enough vaccines to go around. I think we have about 38 million doses in the kitty right now. And we want to now reach a target of vaccinating 70, preferably 80% of the target population, so that we have what we call a herd immunity that is protective, so that even if people get infected, the consequences are less severe than if they had no vaccination at all.
When you say, Honorable Minister, we have 38 million vaccine doses for COVID, what do you expect with your 3.0 strategy? Will it be the 2 doses and a booster for each individual, or just a single dose and then a second dose?
Well, thank you. It depends on the kind of vaccine that we use. We have those vaccines that you need to give twice. And then you have those that you give as a single dose. That's the Johnson & Johnson variant. We started out by reserving the Johnson & Johnson for the kind of population you are not likely to be able to see easily for a second dose. You have nomadic population, or people who live in difficult to reach areas, or those who live in areas which are somehow security compromised. You'll be lucky to use 1 shot to cover them, and then look for a second shot as booster. But for those who are in an area where you can reach them easily, there are 2 doses that you give. So we have a mix of both. And the government has a good inventory of vaccines right now.
What is it that the 3 states you mentioned that have achieved 50% vaccine coverage, Nasarawa, Jigawa, and Kano, what did they get right?
Well, there are many things that they got right, and above all, there is the passion that follows it, the sense of mission that the government and the ministries there say we must get it, because the states are actually the implementing organs, and we supply the needs and along with the local governments. So if the passion is there, you see this very high uptick. If you look at Nasarawa, for example, it's a very large area state, relatively, but they have got a good coverage. And if you look at Kano, it's densely populated, but still they got it right. So having a dense population is not an excuse for not getting it right. And having a large area, again, is also not really an excuse. It is the passion with which the authorities go at it. And that's why we're trying to change, to involve more people who will speak about it, community leaders, traditional leaders, religious leaders, and so on. So to increase the sense of awareness, the consciousness, and the value, the appreciation of the value of the vaccine for protection of lives.
One earlier in your earlier submission, you talked about the new variants that may be, malingering around, and of course, that could be very virulent, as you said. Now, that gave me a little bit of apprehension, and I started moving in my say, talking about how, strong is going to hit the populace whenever it's spread out. And, the kind of apprehension that, greeted COVID-19 at the beginning, people started feeling as if next moment I'm going to die if there are these signs and this kind of signs. Now, back to that question again, which I said you have a lot of work to do. There seems to be a lot of apprehension whenever people hear that COVID-19 is back and it's coming back. And here we are today. It seems like it's as if it's a relaxed situation, business as usual, and people are moving around.
Yes, there are 2 things. First is that we want to wish COVID-19 away. We want to wish it away, to wish it to be gone. The other thing is that it has a serious impact on the economy, on trade, on movement, on business. So you don't want it to be around. Mm-hmm. And for those 2 reasons, we want to sort of like take our eyes off, and if we take our eyes off, then it's not there. But in reality, it's there in the background. And the authorities, like the World Health Organization, who do very close scientific monitoring, tell us not to let down our guards. There's been a lot of improvement. Mortality is very low. Hospitalization rate is low. But the infection is there, and there are susceptible and vulnerable people who still succumb to it, those who have predisposing illnesses. And therefore, do not think that we are free. We are out of the woods. We are not yet out of the woods. So that is the message we are trying to send to our population also, to continue to have that apprehension, because the apprehension drives uptake, it drives people to find a way to protect themselves and to take the non-pharmaceutical measures to protect themselves too and their friends.
Are we as a nation still grappling with vaccine hesitancy?
Yes, we are. Again, for the reason that we just heard now, the feeling that it's there, so I don't need to worry about it anymore, or that it's gone, I don't need to worry about it. In reality, it is not gone, and this Scales 3.0 is part of the strategy, is to keep reminding people that this hesitancy is harmful, and do not be overconfident. Just take this vaccine and it will not do you any harm, to fight against the picture that's been painted about COVID vaccine sterilizing men or causing other kinds of problems, causing genetic problems. So those stories should somehow be countered.
We cannot really end this segment of the program without talking about vaccines, and locally produced vaccines for that matter. In the heat of COVID-19, I think I can recall the government and your ministry specifically spearheaded, the campaign for locally produced vaccine, and even some, amounts were placed on the table for those who could really come up with something tangible that could be used in Nigeria's vaccine. I don't know how far we've gone in that, because having to relax, if that's the situation at the moment, we've not been hearing so much about that. And then even the doctors and the researchers and the rest of them have been quiet. Talk less of your ministry.
No, they are not quiet. COVID-19 has brought to the forefront the value of vaccination. And then again, to go back to Skills 3.0, one of the items on the agenda for that strategy is combining COVID-19 vaccines with routine immunization, the routine immunization that you normally give. So if you use one to back the other, so you can killing two birds with one stone, as they say. So, and at the same time, it has brought the value of routine immunization to the forefront. And then the understanding that vaccines sometimes are the only medicines, that rather than tablets, that will cure certain kinds of infection. So we are working on the vaccines. We're encouraging our scientists to continue to work on it. But the anxiety we had at the beginning when we did not have enough of this COVID vaccine is gone, because right now we have enough COVID-19 vaccine.
Okay.
So, in fact, more than enough. The anxiety to produce COVID-19 vaccine locally is there, but is not in the forefront, it's not pressing. And in fact, those who are producing these vaccines now are looking for buyers, because it's everywhere, it's surplus. So, and they can't find buyers, so they're even scaling down their own production. What we're interested in now is using the technology to join in the research for new vaccines against other kind of diseases, not necessarily COVID-19. So acquisition of the technology, particularly the mRNA technology, is what Nigeria is looking for, to join those who are in the research. And in a few weeks' time, we are meeting with the team members of BioNTech, who are the progenitors of the producers of Pfizer vaccine. And we have had discussions with the Serum Institute of India. So it's all to introduce Nigeria into the vaccine research world, and to acquire the technology and work with those who can give us the patent or share their knowledge with us to produce vaccines for other kinds of things, including malaria.
All right, Mr. You did say introduce Nigeria to the vaccine production world, or to reintroduce Nigeria. We were there previously, as the experts once told us.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. We wish to produce vaccines against yellow fever, rabies, and so on, and smallpox until 1992. We used to do that in Yaba. And then the production shut down for renovation. And that renovation never took place. We became a net importer, and that was at a time when we also had that overconfidence that we had plenty of money We didn't know what to do with the money. So why bother to manufacture anything? We can import everything. So there was a time we had that mentality, the mindset here. And it is this administration that started preaching self-reliance. Produce your own food, eat what you produce, wear what you produce. And at the same time, we went to produce your own vaccines. So we started a revival of that old vaccine plant and working with the private sector. And that's what gave birth to a company called BioVaccine Nigeria Limited, in which the government and the private sector are collaborating to produce vaccines. On the one hand, routine vaccines, and then this particular technology of mRNA, which we are working on, that's largely a research and clinical trial platform.
We're already running short of time, but I think we can't really end this program without talking about the monkeypox case.
Yeah, that's right. That's how I was wondering just you're reading my mind, Nada, but go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, the monkeypox issue really.
How much of a concern should that be
has
to
it been,
us?
and so far, how
monkeypox?
Yeah.
Well, monkeypox has been largely around here. It's creating sensation now because it has gone to Europe and to America and to other countries. It's a very scary picture when you see someone who has a monkeypox, but the fatality rate is very low. And because it's very low, there is not that panic, but the appearance of it is frightening. And for those in Europe and as far away as Australia, United States, where this is manifesting, they don't see those kind of things anymore. At least they have not seen that kind of thing anymore. Those are things you see in the tropics and in the third world countries. So they're very worried about it. And there's a conference now where they're deliberating to change the name. They don't want to call it monkeypox anymore. They want to find another name for it. But
certainly,
it's been around here for some time.
From the tropics, by the way. I mean, because that's the way. I say, if we have an opportunity of contributing to the ongoing debate, the search for a new name for monkeypox, they shouldn't link it to the tropics. Find a name for them, because part of what we are reading is that it's manifesting in populations where you have same-sex interaction or intercourse. So they shouldn't, again, label Africa or the tropics as a source of monkeypox. Honorable Minister, I think Nadabu, I think that's important. We have to protect.
But remember, we already have chicken pox.
No, that's chicken. That's a poultry name, Honorable Minister. But Nadabu, just before we sign off the Minister, one or two things. What should be the citizen? What should be the citizen expectation when the 3.0 strategy for COVID vaccine begins to roll out? What should we expect? I mean, it's a strategy. So, if I go out, I'm fully vaccinated, I'm boosted. So, what should I expect, or what should others expect when they go out?
Well, first and foremost is what the Ministry of Health expects. We expect more collaboration and cooperation of the populace. We want more interest, and we want the population and particularly community leaders to partner with us and say, yes, we agree with you. We see your point. We are going to do everything to make sure we get vaccinated and vaccinate our friends and family. Then the general expectation for us and for the government, again for the population, is that we have reached 80% of coverage of the target population, and we have acquired herd immunity.
So virtually the target is greater vaccination.
Exactly. That is exactly the end.
Oh, thank you so much, Honorable Minister. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much. It's Good Morning Nigeria. We've talked with the Honorable Minister of Health here, talking about 3.0 strategy of COVID-19. We will now go on break, and then when we come back, a discussion on our second topic continues. Stay with us. Farming up the Naira is our topic again, and then we now try to see what justice can do down to begin a discussion on that. Let's take a start from our last discussion on stabilizing the Naira, put together by Abdulsalam Jibril.
So long as we don't look inwards and improve on this side, the FX demand side that is pulling a lot of the resources out of our space, we will still continue to be, lamenting over these FX issues. And like I said earlier, even central bank also need FX to be able to, defend that. We don't print dollars. We also don't earn dollars per se.
At the point in time we were celebrating our naira in the streets of England. Me and you were in the university when we were buying tickets for 7,000, naira to fly to the UK, and everybody could be able to spend naira in the streets of UK. It wasn't magic. It wasn't government policy. It was that we were productive and that our naira was being traded in markets. Let's be clear about that. Okay, and anybody who says a policy is going to be able to help us get out of these woods would be singing to the choir.
What we currently have that is discouraging to see it officially is what I term fixed versus flexible exchange rate. That is undermining us to harness the impact of that diaspora remittances. You have multiplicity of exchange rates, whereby you are doing 420 in the I and E window, and the parallel market now is 650. You want Nigerians to come and bring their money in 420, while there is also a value of 650. So that brings contradiction.
I think one thing I'd like to quickly clarify, there are many myths that are going around in Nigeria today. For example, the myth of a single rate. There's nowhere in the world where you have a single rate for a currency. And we seem to now be so focused on the currency, and everybody has become a trader. People are now saving their money in dollars. And that is an expression of no confidence on their country and on their currency. Remember that I said earlier that your currency is you. So we need some political will to be able to correct the situation. Otherwise, it's possible for the naira to go on a spin whereby you'll not be able to recover it.
All right, now those were excerpts from the second part of our conversation on stabilizing the naira. Today, we're saying, how do we firm up the naira? Which, of course, is a continuation of that conversation, namely looking at measures that will most likely help the naira regain a great deal of strength against other major currencies, convertible currencies around the world. Happily, with us here in the studios again is Dr. Hassan Mahmoud, Director, Department of Monetary Policy at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Dr. Mahmoud, we're glad to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning.
And also part of this conversation this morning is a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Dr. Muda Yusuf. Dr. Muda Yusuf, of course, is a former Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and is currently the CEO of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. Dr. Muda Yusuf, we're glad to have you always on Good Morning Nigeria.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, Dr. Muda, let's begin straight away with you. We, in the first two installments of this conversation, our guests had talked about the causative factors in the value of the naira, more especially on the parallel market, speculative attacks, import dependence, and so on and so forth. So, as much as we can, we want to maximize the time that we have today by looking at measures that just could help us. I know that it's inevitable for you, considering the way you normally delve into issues, to hark back into what has caused what we are doing. But is the situation with our naira remediable, and if so, how?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, in order to address the way forward, we also need to put it within the context of what has brought us to this point. Don't forget, exchange rate is a price. In economics, when you talk of a price, you look at the factors influencing price. And the key factors influencing price are factors on the demand side and factors on the supply side. So if you really want to remedy the situation, we'll be looking at those variables driving the two sides of the equation. On the demand side, the biggest pressure we are getting now is from fuel importation. That's putting a lot of pressure on exchange rates and a lot of pressure on our reserves. Secondly, we have very huge demand for raw materials, for industries, and this is happening because our core industries have practically collapsed. What I mean by core industries are industries that are supposed to support the lighter industries. I have in mind here things like iron and steel, things like the petrochemical industries, the aluminum smelter, the paper mills, and so on and so forth. If we had those in place as it was originally planned, I mean, that will support all these other industries, and the need to rely heavily on imported raw materials will not exist. Then the third point is the fact that the CBN policy itself is a problem. It's a problem because it's creating barriers for inflows into the economy, inflows of capital into the economy. We have a rigid exchange rate regime. We have a very wide premium between the parallel market and the official window, and this is creating a whole lot of distortions in the foreign exchange market. It's creating a very serious confidence problem. It's creating uncertainty. It's making it difficult for people to plan. It's aggravating the volatility in the foreign exchange market, and above all, it's even fueling corruption. You know, so the policy regime also is something that we need to look at. Then there is also the issue of the CBN financing of deficit. Right now, we are already at the threshold of about 20 trillion of the amount of ways and means. That's the rate at which the CBN has been offering overdraft or support to fill the gap in the financing of government expenses. This is highly inflationary, and this is also fueling money supply and also aggravating the problem of inflation and the problem of exchange rate depreciation. So that is also, and then there's also the issue of the confidence in the Naira itself. A currency is supposed to be a store of wealth. That is one of the major functions of a currency. The moment a currency begins to fail as a store of value, then there will be people migrate to other assets. People will migrate to other currencies or migrate to other investments and so on. So we need to create a situation where people will have confidence in the Naira. And the way to do that is to see how we can moderate inflation. Then on the supply side, now we need productivity to be able to export. We need productivity to be able to facilitate import substitution. So that is within the structural space. If we create the right kind of structural environment and deal with issues of infrastructure, productivity, and competitiveness, we'll be able to substitute imports, which is very important. That's import substitution, and be able to export. Because when you talk about international trade, it's about competitiveness. If you don't create the environment for us to produce competitively, then we have a problem of high import dependence. And when you talk about import substitution, one of the easiest ways out of this is to ensure that we're able to refine our own petroleum products. I mean, we are spending billions of dollars annually to import petroleum products. So if we're able to get our refineries up and running, and I think the government is planning to do that, and if we're able to support other private initiatives in refineries, that will also help a great deal. Then in terms of supply, we need to remove the policy barriers that the foreign exchange policy is creating. If you make the market a lot more market reflective, I mean make the foreign exchange market reflective, the barriers that the current policy has placed on the inflows, that's private capital inflows into the foreign exchange market, will have been removed. Because, I mean, let's face it, we have other sources of inflows. We have foreign direct investment inflows. We have foreign portfolio investors. We have the export proceeds. We have proceeds from oil companies. We have proceeds from the embassies. We have proceeds from the Nigerian Port Authority, NIMASA, and the rest of them. And the way to ensure that these inflows come into the economy officially and through the right window is to allow for a market-reflective exchange rate. I mean, how many investors will bring their capital into this economy at the official rate of 415 or 416 or 420 when they know that they have multiple rates, so even as high as 660, 650, at a point it was getting to 700. So if you allow a market-reflective rate, that we support supply and allow all these inflows to come in and strengthen the supply side. And on the demand side, all those who are parasites in the foreign exchange market, because the demand is heavy in the foreign exchange market because there are so many people in that space who are there because of the premium. They are there to take advantage of the round tripping. And this is creating a whole lot of problems on the demand side. And it's creating a whole lot of corruption. You now have so many currency brokers in the economy, so that those who legitimately even need the currency for genuine businesses are being crowded out. So that is a major issue. So we need to remove the barriers to inflows, which has been caused by the foreign exchange policy. Then we need to deal with the issue of insecurity. Insecurity is affecting our capacity to meet our OPEC quota. Insecurity in terms of, first, the oil theft, which is a major issue, and that, of course, is a major failure on the part of those who are supposed to ensure security. Because these are thefts that are in huge magnitude. We are talking about people loading crude oil in vessels and taking them out of the country illegally. So dealing with insecurity, particularly in the oil producing area, is very critical to stop the oil theft. It's very critical to allow investment to grow in that sector. Many oil companies have left, partly because of insecurity. And those that have not left have left the offshore. They have left the onshore to offshore. So we need to deal with the problem of insecurity in the oil and gas sector. So those are some of the issues that we need. And of course, there are global issues. Now we are seeing normalization of monetary policy in the US and some other countries. That is strengthening the dollar. And the moment the dollar is getting stronger, our exchange rate will continue to weaken. That is the global dimension to this problem. So you can see that there are so many angles, so many factors responsible for where we are. So if you have to address this issue, these are the dimensions of the issues, the dimensions of the problems that we need to address in order to be able to fix this problem.
Muda Yusuf, will come back to you in the course of the conversation. It seems you have a lot more to say. Dr. Hassan Mahmoud, you were here really the other time. We're talking about stabilizing the Naira. You've heard, what Muda Yusuf said, and of course, most specifically referring to two issues here, which he mentioned, that directly, affects you and your organization. Talking about CBN policy creating barriers for influx of, the forex, and of course, financing of deficits, which is very highly inflationary. But in spite of all this, in spite of what really happened in the past 1 month or 2 months when the Naira really dipped, and then of course now we've seen it coming back and then appreciating. Against the background of these two, claims by Muda and then of course claims by experts as such, and the appreciation of the Naira, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think he has said a lot of things, but I think we need to be looking at central bank or government institutions or macroeconomic policy within the context of the fundamentals of the economy. And I'll go to two different sides that he talked about. One, central bank does not operate in isolation from what is going on in the economy. He talked a lot about some structural issues, that relates to what determines the value of the currency, which is your economic activities, which is trade. Naira is not a convertible currency that you can say you use. What determines your currency, using your purchasing power parity, is what you can produce, what you can get to other countries in the world that can be bought, and you get the foreign currency. He talked about issues around security and other distortions within the economy, infrastructure, and some issues within the real sector. Capacity utilization is low or has failed over time, and those are factors that have reduced our capability to export and earn the foreign currency. Now, we also looked at issues around the market. Why is market forces not allowed to determine the price, and the central bank is using policies to address that. In economics, that is also so refer. And let me just deal with the issues and stop just referring to an individual in this case. Market functioning, they call it price discovery, and the firm theory is that perfect competition means that every player in that market have the same information the same time. Simultaneous, availability of information. Information means the prices that will be given, and that market will also have free entry and exits. You can come into that market, you can leave that market at the same time. Then you will see an equilibrium price discovery in that market. When we say a market fail, that means that this parameter, just like you said, a state fail. If you cannot take care of security, you say the state apparatus are failed. The same thing if market fails. If market fails, this functioning, this price discovery that we're talking about, that will bring about an effective price that will reflect the demand and supply within that economy, will also collapse. And if that collapses and you leave the market to play that role, then the price givers will take over that market. And that's why we say the monopoly market is not a perfect competitive market, because there's going to be segregation of prices in those markets. I don't want to be technical, but the point I'm trying to make here is that so long as the demand and supply within that context is not equivalent to the fundamentals of that economy, in the sense that there are maybe 3 or 4 channels of supply of FX to the Nigerian economy. Principally, and which has been the key one, is the oil sector. Yeah, oil export proceed. The largest proportion of forex or foreign exchange that Nigeria has is from oil export. Up till today, we still have the same that. Then you have remittances that come in. Then you have other exports that has been done by the economy through trade, which is already gone now. And then on the supply side, you have invisibles. He also talked about petroleum. Invisibles means other services, education, health, and other things that we spend our money on. On that demand side, we have, and then the import dependence, or the tendency for us to import everything that we want within the economy, are the demand side of that FX. Now, the 3 or 4 sides I mentioned of the FX inflows, the oil sector, you know what is going on there. Even though oil prices are going up substantially, our proportion to exports is declining. The infrastructure assets in the oil sector is also deteriorating. Happy also mentioned that new investors are not even coming to that space for other reasons that we are all familiar with. Exports, we also see this infrastructure and all the security issues affecting the ability to export. We also have issues around the quality of what we export. We also have the issue of standardizing the export to meet global standard. So that is also shrinking. We have issues around remittances, global developments that affect that. People that are working abroad are supposed to send in their money. There was COVID, there was global financial crisis. All those inflows were not coming in. Then what did the central bank do? So these are the fundamentals of the economy that is affecting the demand and the supply side. The point I'm trying to bring out is that those supply sides were grossly affected, and so the inflows reduced substantially. The central bank, like I always say, is just to, is a custodian of the effects of the economy. It does not create tools to get effects in, apart from allowing for a stable macro environment for foreign portfolio investment or foreign direct investments to come in. And also it is important to emphasize that the currency, Naira or any currency, is not meant to trade. It's not a commodity that you trade in. It is supposed to be used, like you said, means of exchange or store of value. But when you put the Naira as something you trade, and earn income from just exchanging Naira without any fundamental production around it, that is not what Naira is meant for. And that's why we also emphasize that for foreign portfolio investments, those that just come in, trade in the stock exchange or trade in the fixed income market, bring in their money, make a gain, and go out, just for using that money as a commodity, they are not adding any value to your economy. Yes, it will deepen the financial market, but what value, productivity is it adding to the economy? And if we want to emphasize that, so we want to leave our currency to just go for those people to come, make a kill, go out, and then leave you in your mess. It doesn't make sense. If you're going to bring in your resources, invest it like FDIs, invest in the economy, face the risk within the economy, manage those risks, export. We have made every policy for you to repatriate your funds, so long as you have a certificate of capital importation, your dividends. There is no any capital control in that space. So coming to say that, okay, just leave it and let which one, I've talked about the market failure. And now central bank is working on ensuring that there's just market efficiency so that price discovery is efficient. The price discovery will reflect the fundamentals of your economy. The countries that are having strong currencies is because they export a lot. And so people want, they earn a lot of the other currency and they can buy whatever they want to buy with that currency. And then the third part of what I will emphasize here is that so long as we do not address these fundamentals, so long as we don't affect supply side, so long as we don't look inwards in the sense that the ability to reduce the unnecessary imports, which we can produce locally, even though, like I said, these are not within the purview of the bank to, drive that. But initiatives have been taken largely to address the supply side. And those supply side initiatives, most important among them now is the RT200 that's just been discussed. And the essence of that is to drive export. Export that is also value adding, job creating. So it's addressing the external side, it's also addressing the domestic side because it's creating jobs, it's allowing our farms and businesses to now start growing up and they're earning income domestically and they're also creating the market for the rest of the economy. So if you address that substantially and you have those inflows, then you'll be able to fight the naira and keep the currency, very strong.
Okay, Dr. Mahmoud, tell us. We know that there was a lot of argument, and Dr. Muda Yusuf was part of that argument when the central bank, about 6 years ago, when we were in a recession, excluded 41 items from access to the official forex market. It wasn't that there was a prohibition on the importation of those items, but you couldn't access forex. Part of the ways of defending the naira against those items. And I remember one of the items then was importation of wheelbarrows. I mean, it was ridiculous to have said that. But it appears that that prohibition lingers. What has been the impact of that? Do we need to bring in more items into that basket?
Well, the argument is that you see central bank, because of the limitations of its policy tools, delving into some areas to be able to achieve its mandate. One, and like you mentioned, even toothpick were in that list. Even some consumables that can generally be produced here were on that list. We had in those situations a company or a farm that is producing a product in Nigeria. And for the last 40 years, that same farm has been importing its raw materials from its home country. And it's living in your country. And it's making gains. And it's repatriating dividend for 40 years. And a country will sit down and allow that kind of a thing to be going on. It's ridiculous. So you can't, we need to, as Nigerians ourselves, forget about central bank, be very committed to, and bold to take some policy decisions that will be Nigerian first. The Americans that are doing it, they are not the fools. Nigeria first. How do we revive our own industry? We remember a time when the old system was opened and it was cheaper for you to even, for some products, textile or whatever, for you to import it from China, thousands of kilometers away, with the FX and everything. It would be cheaper for you to go there, bring it to Nigeria, than produce it here. Why was it more costly here? Cost of electricity, cost of the equipment that you need to use to do that, labor and all that. If you revive that side, and it's a lot cheaper, people are going to US, America, US, UK, advanced economies. We're going to produce the items in China some 10, 15 years ago because of the cost of labor. We'll have had that opportunity if those things. You see services like this, call systems, and you call a bank in the UK or in the US and you hear an Indian voice answering you. the call centers are in Delhi. They are just looking for those labor. So the world became global market, but countries that are not competitive cannot play in that space. So while those spaces opened and economies were joining that space and earning, and countries like Botswana, South Africa were playing in those space, and using policies within their domestic economy to be competitive in that space, were able to gain from that globalization. We sat here and are looking at how other countries in the world can provide help for us, can give us loan, can give us aids to drive our system, and we use those aids to finance salaries and not even invest in infrastructure, invest in companies. And we come to say, oh no, Nigeria should be able to benefit from it. It is just the fundamentals of the economy, and we need to look at that side of it than affiliating it to a particular. And the system also operates within a body of system. Within an economy, we have the external sector, which is what we are talking about. We have the real sector, which is the manufacturing, and we have the financial, the monetary. The central bank plays only in the monetary and the financial side of it. The real sectors are critical. These are the supply side of the external sector. Are most of the things we have now affecting FX are from the external side. The external side has to do with our import and export. Central bank does not do the import and export. The economy drives the import and export. But we have the fiscal. You have issues also in that space, revenue generation. How do you get that to drive? So it is a gamut of issues. And so if you isolate one institutions to be the one to take all the minuses in the economy, or to have the solution, central bank always drives short-term money market instruments. So
Yes.
Our policies are demand side driven, and they are also supposed to be short-term management of kind of quantity of money or liquidity within the system. These structural factors must be addressed, and we need to stop lamenting every day, address those issues and move on.
I wish I could go straight to, Muda Yusuf now. Yeah, I know we do have him, but all the same, Muda was just give me a break for a moment. I want to just tackle an issue here with, Dr. Hassan Mahmoud. When Muda earlier said higher productivity, halt importation, or even importation of business. And the basics, as you say, is to have some other sectors of the economy really moving and working, and having to bring in the confidence on the Naira by reducing importation and then having to increase exportation. The CBN has been in the forefront of interventions in this, especially in this administration, and the weight has been much more heavier in the agricultural sector, which is really doing a little bit fine there. But one would have thought that with the knowledge you have in the CBN, and of course the strength of the importation, the exportation, window, the intervention must be much more heavier and weightier there, and then this could have really brought down the issue of this inflation and then the value of the Naira, because it's often been said that the confidence of the Naira, the confidence people have in their Naira, is driven, or rather is brought about by the patriotism they have in their country and the nationalism they show.
Yeah, the confidence in the Naira centers more around what the Naira can do for you. The value of the Naira in terms of, and the point you raise around inflation. That is the critical, that is the underlying factor that tells you the real value of the currency or the Naira that we are holding. And like you rightly said, measures towards addressing those supply side. For example, central bank mandate is to ensure price and monetary stability. Principle around there is inflation. So long as inflation is low and stable, it enables investors to plan. It increases the welfare gain of the same earning that you have. If you are earning the same salary over a period of time and inflation is declining, that same salary can buy you more things. Yeah. The same salary. But if you're earning the same salary over a period of time and inflation is increasing, the ability for you to buy the same thing that you are taking with that salary will be reducing year on year. So you'll be worse off. So the important thing is that, and this is more to the more vulnerable, the poorer people. Other people that are in well-paid jobs can use their labor rights or whatever to ask for more pay because inflation is going. Other people that are in the low cadre don't even have salaries, do not have that the privilege. So it's important that we address that, so that the generality of the economy is, the welfare gain in the economy is improved. But if we do not look at factors that would drive exports to earn this money. And if import is not bad, if you use your import to support additional export, now that we have farms springing up, and then we see importation of machineries, importation of some chemicals that we cannot produce locally, and then you use that to drive your advanced economies that are developed now. They are taking the raw materials from here. And I remember, Kingsley, you also gave an example of the cost of cocoa beans here, going out, the value addition without any value addition, going to the Netherlands or the UK and come back as chocolate. You see that the value of that chocolate is 7 times the value of the cocoa. The machineries that were used to produce those cocoa, they are already sunk cost. They are just gains now. They invested in them in the first place. But over the years, they were producing this chocolate and bringing back to you. So the gains that you've even made, which is very low from the export, you use it, 7 of it, if you have gain $1, to export cocoa bean and then use $7 to import it, you've lost $6. So it is important that now, if you don't need to import chocolate, or you can produce chocolate here, if there's no value addition to what you produce, productivity means that the same factors of production are bringing out additional output. So if we do not put in those products, either through technology or either through the application of more capital in that space or more investment in that space, and we do not increase that productivity, then our ability to drive this strength of the economy to make the Naira strong will not be achieved.
Okay, Dr. Mahmoud, thank you very much. Dr. Muda Yusuf, if you are there, stay with us. All right, here, your Zoom is always stable. Thank you. Let me throw this in. I know you may wish to respond to one or two aspects of Dr. Mahmoud's own comments, but on a strategic level, have we attempted to examine how, for instance, China has undermined our industrialization and what we can then do to get out of that? Because in recent decades, everything is, go to China, get these things in, get these things in. I know you mentioned heavily the fuel importation, and that's right before our eyes, the fact that the 4 refineries are all prostrate. But have we, on a strategic level, to say, look, China has grown to become the 2nd world's largest economy, but it has also done so by killing off our own local industries. What can we do to revive our own industries, get ahead with import substitution, part of what you mentioned earlier, and get back as much as possible to the 1970s situation, which you are familiar with?
Yes, I think we need to take our destiny in our own hands. Because most of the challenges that we are faced with in the economy are our own making. They are either arising from the fact that our institutions are not functioning well, or we don't have the right kind of policies, or we don't prioritize our expenditure properly, or we have wrong people in wrong places. Basically, those are the issues. I mean, if people are bringing things from China, sometimes a lot of these things are smuggled in. We have institutions that are supposed to checkmate that. How many people have you properly sanctioned or convicted on account of smuggling some of these items into this economy? So the challenge is that many of our institutions are already compromised. So that is one issue. The problem is not with China. There was a time we had to engage them when I was still at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, that they were facilitating the export of substandard products and things from their country. And they told us that, well, they are businessmen. Whatever people come to request, the quality they request is what they will produce for them. But how are they getting it into this country? So there are issues of some unscrupulous private sector players as well who are perpetrating this. There are issues of some state officials who are supposed to ensure compliance with some of these fiscal policies. who are also compromised. Then there are also issues around the fact that we are not investing sufficiently enough to support production. That is key. Because how do you industrialize if you don't have the infrastructure to support the industries? The industries have been collapsing on the back of the failure of infrastructure. Look at the structure of our budget. How much of our budget is going to infrastructure? I'm not sure it's up to 20%. And these countries that we reference, you need to see how much they are spending on their own infrastructure. That is what will make the difference. So when we talk about structural issues, those are the things that we need to do. We need to ensure that we have the infrastructure in place. We need to ensure that our institutions are up and doing. Our institutions are not compromised, so that people don't just take bribe and allow all manner of products to come in. And there have to be consequences for citizens who violate our trade policies, our fiscal policy. There have to be consequences. We are not seeing much of that. So that is it. But let me also emphasize, those are structural and institutional issues. And the CBN director has also said sufficiently about that. But we also need to emphasize that we have policy issues on the part of the CBN that we need to fix. If you don't fix it, the situation will continue to get worse. I mean, how do we explain a situation where you have a gap of almost 200 naira on a dollar? How can an economy function that way? Even for those who officially get the foreign exchange, you get 1 million from the official window. You are supposed to import raw materials. If you sell it in the parallel market, you are making a gain of almost 150 million. Even if you go and produce, can you make that kind of profit? And there are so many people who are benefiting from that. So what we are saying is that we need to remove this source of distortion. First, it's fueling unnecessary demand in the foreign exchange market. Secondly, it's obstructing inflow of capital into this economy. Thirdly, it's shortchanging even the government revenue. Why must you be exchanging the country's dollar at 416 when you can sell it at 500? I mean, for a government that is having serious problem of financing, we are having huge fiscal deficit, we are having a debt crisis, and yet we are selling our foreign exchange at 416. And some other people within the ecosystem are the ones taking advantage of that premium. So in order to ensure liquidity in the foreign exchange, because liquidity is very important. Many operators now, their activities have been crippled because there's no liquidity in the foreign exchange market. And what I mean by liquidity is whatever you want to get, whatever foreign exchange you need, you should be able to get it in the foreign exchange market. If there is liquidity, we are not talking about the rate now. Many people now cannot get, I mean, check out what people get in the I&E window. If industrialists make requests, many of them don't get up to 20% of their requests. How will they operate? And if they now go to the parallel market, I've seen instances where after going to the parallel market, because they cannot source FX from the official window, the FCC came after some companies, asking them to explain how they got it in the parallel market. So what do you expect investors to do? Then you have the airlines. Their funds have been stuck here, almost $500 million. You have foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investors who cannot take their money out. These are liquidity problems that have been created by the policy, by the forex policy. Let us have liquidity. If you have the liquidity, then the things can adjust. Gradually, we move into equilibrium, and depending on what capacity the CBN can now intervene in the market. But you allow the market itself to operate. That is what we are saying. If the market operates, the CBN, depending on its capacity, can now intervene to moderate the exchange rate. And we have liquidity, and this economy can move on. I admit we have structural problems, but the structural problems have been compounded by the policy problem. That is the point. That's the point I want to emphasize.
Muda Yusuf, you may want to, Dr. Hassan, you may want to really respond to this. But before you do that, and at the beginning of the inception of this administration, President Buhari was, very much passionate about the value of the naira, and of course trying to see how much that can go in trying to see an alternative to the dollar. And the yen thing came in. And then along the line, we didn't hear so much about that anyway. Along the line, I don't know. That could have gone a long way in trying to solve this issue of foreign exchange and then reduce the importation issue and increase exportation. That's one side of the story, of the question. The other side is your response to the liquidity issue, which Muda was trying to get back to. The footballer, yes. Muda Yusuf, is talking about. Maybe you can respond to these issues sharply because we're running short of time.
Okay, let me quickly take the issue of the parallel market. The parallel market premium, which is the gap, is a reflection of the disparity between your demand and supply. It's a reflection of the degree of illiquidity within the system. It's a signal. It tells you there is a lot of imperfection within the price discovery of your exchange rate. That's a signal. And economists or analysts use it to measure how efficient your economy is. Now, the central bank operates within the banking system. Central bank is a formal institution and operates within a formal market, a conventional banking system. That's where monetary policy transmission takes place. There's a huge informal sector. Activities that are happening in the parallel market more or less reflect those distortions in the informal sector. And now if I may ask, what are the, for example, we created a BDC market and said, okay, address invisibles, PTA, BTA, 4,000, 5,000. How on earth will somebody go to the parallel market and want to raise $2 million to import something in the US? I know the BDCs cannot transfer $2 million for you. So, and you cannot go to the US or China to import something and take $2 million cash that you bought from the parallel market to go and buy those things there. So what transactions are they doing in that market that is having that spread? It's not for trade, it's not for business. It's for store of value. So you do something, once somebody gave you $1 billion, there's nowhere you can keep it, you go and collect just maybe...
Corruption proceeds.
Yeah, you go and keep it at home and keep it for the next 5-6 years.
It's not store of value, it's corruption proceeds.
Yes, you have cases where somebody had $9 million in a store. How did you get that money from banks? Can you go to a commercial bank and withdraw $2 million or $1 million? So you see, let's separate that from the fundamentals of the market. And if you want to use that to say, okay, this is going to be our benchmark, then that means you are not throwing the entire economy to the winds for those players to drive the economy. And that's why even the last case that we had EFCC run after those people, and then you start seeing the prices the coming down. So that market does not reflect the fundamentals of the market. And you cannot use that as an anchor to say, oh, that is what is happening in the BDC market. If you are going to be doing a genuine business, go to your commercial bank. And on the other hand, you said importers cannot bring in the FX. So who will bring in the FX? Central banks to print dollars? The export proceeds that they got, did they bring it to the bank? So you got FX from central bank, do your business and your income and revenue, and sell this at the black market, and then now come to central bank to get money to import. Go to the black market where you sold your FX to buy too. So and that is why we came up with a policy one time that your export proceeds must come to your bank, where you do the FX. Deposit it there. Do you use it for your transactions? Why are people keeping dollar-denominated accounts? For what? It is illegal for you in this country to use dollar to pay for anything. The legal tender currency is the naira. Yeah, so if you have...
I'm sorry, Dr. Mahmood. Muda cited some examples of critical sectors that are having challenges with accessing forex. In fact, we had a conversation on the aviation industry. And they said that that's one of the things that we are seeing in terms of the price volatility for fares. Why is it that airlines are having difficulty?
You see, all to solve these problems, We remember we created what we call PIVE, that interventions for the aviation industry and stuff like that. We had the SME window where, small businesses that cannot face the route of this black market or distorted market were given FX at that window at a more or less like at a subsidy rate. So the rationing was to drive this critical sector, the most important part of it. Okay, let's not, these ones go and face this route. These are very critical. Aviation is critical. Agriculture is critical. SMEs are critical. They created a window for that, where they can come, take your $20,000, import your machineries or whatever, and start your business. And then you shouldn't be dependent on those importations. We have, you remember that tomato grinding machines and so used to be imported from China. Now they do it everywhere, even within Abuja here. So if you don't create that environment for those kind of, skills to strive, you don't get that out. And I think you mentioned another thing which is very important. There are two studies that have been done before. There's Robert Barrow and Salai Martins. This is a cross-country analysis of why countries grow faster than each other. And then there was another one by Simoglu, they call it Why Nations Fail. And one critical thing that comes out of there is institutional capacity. So long as you don't have a strengthened institution means police, judiciary, civil service, public servant, media, everybody.
Law enforcement.
Law enforcement. So long as those institutions are compromised and weak, you cannot convert your gains. And that's why most countries, Netherlands, UK, use their oil boom in the 70s and 80s to industrialize the economy. We couldn't. The only reason why we couldn't and we failed was because we don't have institutions to transfer those revenue to investments in our domestic economy. So it is important that we strive on that. He talked about China.
Yeah, we don't have the time really.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm afraid we're in short of time.
Yeah.
Hassan Mahmoud. I don't know, maybe you can summarize that in 30 seconds.
Yes, I was trying to say some of these country-specific factors. China, for more than 30 years, had a kind of a pressure on its FX just to drive exports. They perpetually were depreciating their currency to make their own product cheaper. Cheaper globally. And they did that to become, it's actually the largest economy in the world now. Their reserve is over $1 trillion of China, not renminbi now, I'm talking. So they did that perpetually to America, and the rest of the world were shouting that this is wrong. But now they've pulled out of that space, and the economy is the superpower of the world now. So those type of things, I'm not saying that, okay, all of us should start misbehaving that way, but sometimes you have to look inwards. You have to look at what benefits you most than just playing to open your market for investors to come and just
those will be political decisions.
Yes.
And of course, that isn't within your remit, but of course, I'm sure that the political authorities wouldn't take such decisions without recourse to experts like your good self and Dr. Muda Yusuf, who've been, of course, wonderful with us this morning as well. Try to explore ideas around how we can firm up the national currency. Two issues we didn't have the opportunity of talking about again. I hope we do get the opportunity to discuss that. Diaspora remittances. We hear that tens of billions of dollars get into this economy. We don't see it reflected in the value of the naira against the dollar, for instance. Then payment for mortgages by Nigerians who are working there and taking mortgages out there. If they want to have mortgages, I said it the other time, they should go and work in those other economies and then generate funds that they use to pay for their mortgages, not using their own ATM cards or otherwise to pay for those mortgages. On that note, we'd like to thank our two guests. Wonderful always, Dr. Muda Yusuf, former Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and now CEO of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. I know that you still have a lot to say. The opportunity will come, God willing, on some other occasion. Thank you for being with us via Zoom from Lagos. Here in the studios, Dr. Hassan Mahmoud, Director, Department of Monetary Policy, Central Bank of Nigeria. We appreciate the fact that you are ever willing to engage and clarify issues for our audience. Thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
That's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Deep thanks to our audience. We're back tomorrow same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
I'm Yusuf Nadabu. See you again.